I love playing in this band, and the songs are so much fun to play, and like honestly, like putting them on and listening to them, like I don't have that feeling that I feel like maybe some musicians do, where it's just like, oh, I can't listen to my own band or whatever. Like these songs rule. Like I want to listen to these songs.
Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. Hey everyone, it's James. I'm super excited to have Jon Pagano on for this episode. In our conversation, we go all the way back to Jon's early days playing music, what it was like relearning Weak Teeth songs for their reunion show, how showing up early for rehearsal one day landed him a spot in Best Practices, as well as how his latest band, Sullest, came together, and what their writing process is like. Sullest's debut full-length album is coming out on December 13th via Armageddon Label, and you can pre-order the vinyl and cassette over on Bandcamp right now. Also, check out the video for the first single, Dirt Mall, on YouTube, which we talk a little bit about in this interview. As always, thank you for listening. Please follow Where the Living Room Used to Be on Instagram, as I'll be posting some show photos and flyers from Jon Simon music there over the coming weeks. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but are you a lifelong Rhode Islander?
I am, yes, born and raised.
Yeah, where did you grow up?
I grew up off of Chalkstone in Providence until I was about 10, and then my folks moved to North Kingstown, and that's where I went to high school, and I moved to Lowell, Massachusetts to go to college, and after that came back here.
That's cool. What was music like for you when you were growing up?
It's interesting to think about now because, I guess as a kid, I didn't clock it, but like both of my parents were somewhat musical. My grandparents were also pretty musical. Like my dad's mom was a drummer, and I could be mistaken about this, but she might have been a jazz drummer. She had a Ludwig jazz set that I remember when I was a kid. That I didn't get to play because I was a kid. But she was involved in concert bands and stuff like that up until she passed away a couple of years ago. Like she was still extremely active in like her community bands. She moved out to Ohio when I was in college, but when she was there, she like was very, very active in those sorts of things. And I don't know if that like is hereditary or if that was like something that I saw and was like, oh, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. My maternal grandmother played the accordion, which I always found very interesting.
I love that. That's cool.
But yeah, she was Polish and loved to, play with her brother, like who also played accordion. So like the two of them, there's like footage of them like at family parties, like playing the accordion and singing together. And so it was definitely somewhat of a musical family, which I guess kind of rubbed off on me.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, what was your first instrument? I mean, you play, guitar and bass in a lot of the bands. You've, played drums and organ and sax and everything like that. So what was your first instrument of your own that you played?
Funny enough, it was the accordion.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I actually remember as a kid taking accordion lessons, which feels like such a bizarre sentence to say, but yeah, that was the first instrument I learned how to play, and I think it probably was because my grandmother like had one, so it was just like, oh, here's an instrument that you can just like, you don't have to pay for, you can just like try this out.
Yeah. Where were you taking those lessons?
That is a good question. I've been trying to remember. it was in the basement of like a house. It was like a finished basement that had like a couple of rooms in it, and I don't remember exactly where it was. That's definitely I'm gonna have to ask my mom about that because that's something that it had to be somewhere in Rhode Island, or maybe it was Fall River. I don't know.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, yeah. And your relationship with your brother, you played in bands with him for a long time. Like, was it something that you came up playing music together, or like was he playing music at the same time, or how did that connection first come about?
Yeah, so Mike and I actually he's my uncle, which is
Oh, he's your
a weird.
uncle.
He is
Oh,
my
geez,
uncle, yes.
I didn't know that. Wow, obviously I didn't know that because I just said that. I always thought that he was your brother. Wow, okay.
That is a common misconception, yeah. No, he is my uncle. My dad and he are half brothers.
Oh,
And
okay.
but he and I have been playing together since 2001. So I think I was
Okay.
13 and he was 15.
Yep.
And I got a Tascam 4-track recorder that I've actually still got right over here.
Oh,
I
nice.
got that for my birthday one year, and I had a like an SM58 that I plugged into it, and he and I recorded a album of him on the drums and me on the guitar, and it was all improvised,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was like it's very very bad, but it's you know, we were kind of like dialing into like, you know, just 80s punk and stuff like that, and it
Yep.
was all improv. Like, you know, he did the vocals on the spot, I wrote the riffs on the spot, and I actually still have the cassette
Oh,
somewhere.
amazing.
But they, yeah, so that was kind of the genesis of he and I playing music together.
Yeah. Was Genesis an inspiration for that? As you just said that, I know that you're a pretty big fan.
No, that came much later.
Okay, all right, all right. Don't want to skip ahead. All right.
Yep.
um, so talking to Chris from Weak Teeth as well, he in a previous interview, he kind of talked about his introduction into Weak Teeth, which kind of spurred from one of your earlier bands, Gunshot Wounds, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that was that this 4-track recording? Was that the beginning of that band? See, man, I am striking out on all my guesses. This is a horrible game show right now, but
No. So Gunshot Wound did start as me and Mike. So it was that tape.
okay.
But you know, we eventually decided to get somebody who was actually a drummer to play the drums, and
Yep.
so that's how Neil King, who also played in Weak Teeth, he was the drummer for Gunshot Wound as well.
Yep.
And the three of us played for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, like through, you know, high school into college, and then we met Chris because he played we actually met him at the there's a high school music showcase at AS220 back in the day called Musicality, and his band Upset Broke used to play all the time, and so we got friendly with him. Years and years later, we get a message on MySpace from Chris being
Right.
like, I'm done playing, like, I don't want to play hardcore anymore. I don't want to play like metal anymore. Like, I want to get back to like playing like 4-chord punk. And so he joined Gunshot Wound. And we kind of used that as a transitional time to basically turn into Weak Teeth, because like the sound had completely evolved, and we were in our late teens, early 20s at that point. And so the kind of the following the path of like, you know, well, we've been doing this since we were 13, maybe time for a change.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how Chris ended up playing in Weak Teeth, was a cold call on MySpace.
Nice. And what was some of the stuff you were doing with Gunshot Wound? Like, what was the scene like for you as a teenager playing punk music?
I mean,
Where were you playing? And stuff like that?
Yeah, we primarily played at AS220 at those high school music showcases. We
Yeah.
did like Battle of the Bands and stuff like that, and it was never
Hmm.
anything like when we were in high school, it was never anything super serious. We actually, once we got to college, we started emailing Aaron Janig from the living room
Yeah.
about being like, hey, can we maybe open some shows? And he actually gave us a shot, and we
Hmm.
played some really interesting and cool shows at the living room that I think that, I to this day count as like some of my favorite shows, and like just cool opportunities to like as a kid be like, oh my god, like that's so and so or whatever that like I like grew up listening to, and here I
Hmm.
am now opening for that band. So
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about that type of thing now? I mean, obviously it still happens, but just not at that same degree. Like a lot of bands come through in different kind of packages and stuff like that. But um, what are your thoughts on that? Has that been something that has any effect on what you're doing?
I mean, at this point for me, being that I'm older and that like I've kind of at this point, music is a hobby and it's fun
Hmm.
and everything, but it's I feel like it occupies a different space for me now than it did when I was like 19.
Hmm.
I will say that like the package thing can be a little funky, it's to see bands come through and it's like, oh, there's no local support at all on these shows is um it's definitely a head scratcher. Like I'm not sure if that's um stipulation for the touring package or if that is the venue's policy or what it is, but it's kind of a bummer to know that like kids aren't getting those same opportunities.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that kind of, brings me to talk a little bit more about Weak Teeth as you were a band that did a lot of touring, and have that kind of experience, to make you blush right now. Like seriously, one of my favorite bands ever. So
Oh,
like,
thank you.
um, to have that, to go out and become, at least from my view, become part of something more. Um, can you talk about that experience just overall playing in Weak Teeth, and that, like how things kind of came together, and again just started to get some traction and people buying your records, like selling out of a print of records and stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still consider the Weak Teeth years like, some of those are memories are some of my fondest. Um, and I think that it was cool to feel like you were part of something bigger, um, to finally see the culmination of just like this is a community and DIY is like such a cool and inclusive thing where everybody like knows each other and everyone wants to be
Mhm.
a part of it, and we're all here as equals, which is really cool.
Mhm.
A lot of the early touring days was Chris and Neil actually went out with a band um, prior to Weak Teeth ever touring. They were called I Made This Mistake,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
they made a lot of the friends that we still to this day like keep up with. Like they made a lot of those friends on that tour, and
Mhm.
so it was cool to like go to another city and be like, I've never met this person in my entire life, but now we're best friends because we just like bonded over some dumb, Adult Swim show or like some
Mhm.
dumb Limp Bizkit record or something like that. That like it's cool to know that there were those kindred spirits out there that like, you know, it you were part of a community in in say Providence or whatever, but there's this bigger world where there are people who want the same things that you do, and that was a cool thing to experience for sure.
Mhm.
um we I mean we spent a lot of time on the road, and now thinking about it in my mid 30s, the it's a very exhausting thought to be like, oh my God, we did a month-long tour. Our van blew up. Like, it was just like that whole, there were so many experiences that like were important and informative, but like, to think now of just like, Jesus Christ, what were we doing? Like, that was just such a crazy, it was just very wild to think back on all of those experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can identify it. It's never really made logical sense, a lot of the stuff that I would do on tour as well. But it was just this, like, just blind doing it, Someone's like, hey, do you want to play this show in Columbus, Ohio this weekend? Be like, sure. Like, not like,
we don't have anywhere to stay. We don't know, like, anybody in the town, anything like that. We're just going to drive out there and hope for the best. And, oh, here's $25. Thanks for coming out. Like, hell yeah. Exactly. And you're so stoked that happened that way,
Yeah. It's wild. Talking about some of the records, you guys put a lot of thought into everything that you guys created from what I've gathered, like it was, or I guess I'd like to get, your perspective on it, from, listening to it, it seems that things were written in a very progressive way of like, here's like a riff upon a riff. Like it's not even written in a quote unquote, like normal fashion of like, here's a song we're going to do verse, chorus, verse. It's like, here are these like subsections. Here's like a 5-second piece or something like that. Like, I don't know if I'm right with that guess or not, but that's just kind of what it seems like. And then you would kind of have this tapestry that you would weave together into this, like, this creation. If that's true, can you talk a little bit about what that was like? What was it like in those days of writing, What a Plague You Are, or So You Ruined Your Life, like in your practice space?
Yeah, I mean, you're right on. It's funny to look back now, and especially when we just played a reunion show in May for a friend of ours who's being treated for breast cancer. Relearning those songs, we definitely like had a lot of just like, what the fuck were we thinking? Like, it's like, and it's so funny to just be like, okay, well, here's a part. Now that part is done. And now here's the next part. Now that part is done. And now we're going to tease back to that first part, but now we're going to like have that transition into a third part. So it was like, very much just like, I mean, honestly, like if you saw some of the, like we have right now at the practice space, we have like how the song form is for a lot of the Sullest stuff. And it's the same, we write the same way, where it's just like chuggy dump out, picky dump out. Like, it's just like dumb stuff like that, where it's not like A section, B section, and then back to the A section. And now here's the bridge. It's just like, so, and I think that a lot of that came from the fact that like none of us are like quote unquote songwriters, where it was, we were just like, oh, cool, here's this riff. Oh, I love that. All right, can we add this riff to that riff? And let's like, okay, here's this part. And it was very, there's a lot of like chaos to the songwriting process. So it wasn't, and I think that that's very reflective in the actual songs themselves.
We are completely alone. Tracing out in our fossils, nothing played but our needs. Fucked over and fade, sitting dying, occupying, dead already. Walk around, suicidal and depressed. Lose yourself, you're not a mess or nothing. We are animals, getting out the herd. Non-biological germ. Man is a virus, as far as the earth is concerned.
talking about that reunion show. Again, sorry to keep going back to the interview that I did with Chris, but we got to share his perspective on playing the last one till the next one. At that time, there wasn't any idea if there was going to be next one, but I'm glad that you guys had a crystal ball to name the show literally that, to not say it was like a final show, but just that it was going to be that pause for whatever period. And getting to talk to him. So I'd love to get your perspective on what it was like if you want to go back to that show at Aurora. But more so, I'd like to hear about the reunion show. Also just selfishly, because I was not in town when that happened. I should have sent you my schedule before you booked this, but I was not in town. So I didn't even get to be there, which I was really, really bummed about. But yeah, if you could just talk about those last couple of shows, about like what your own experience was playing these songs with your friends that you've played for such a long time with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that kind of preparing for sitting down to talk to you, like I went back and I watched a little bit of the last show, and I remember at that time that we all kind of like had like our own I don't want to call it a eulogy, because as Chris probably drove home, we never broke up. He would never want to give anyone that satisfaction that we broke up. So but yeah, I was looking back through some posts and stuff that we made in 2017, which is a wild thing to think about. But it was that night was just super special. It was wild to, like, on a Wednesday in June, to be like 200 people came out to see a show of a band that, like, we didn't think anyone really gave a fuck about. Like, and to not only see like that volume, but like the people who were there that was the craziest part to me. Like, we had friends who drove from Rochester, New York to come to see our last show, who like they booked us every time that we went out there. They put us up in their home. They cooked for us. Like, they were like super, like, very, very good friends who, like, we would have never in a million years expected to be like, yeah, we drove 7 hours to come and see your last show. Of course, we're not going to miss your last show. And I've equated it to the scene at the end of Big Fish, where the dad has passed away and all of the characters from throughout the movie come to attend his funeral, and the kids are just like, seeing like the giant and, whatever other characters were there. And it was like, I kind of equated it to that, to like where it was just like a culmination of like all of our friends who meant, and still continue to mean the world to us. But like in the scope of that band, we're like, I know it was very humbling, and it was just a very cool feeling to know that, we meant that much to, like, one person, let alone, more than that. So, and as far as the reunion show goes, we had been talking about it for a couple of years, because it had been a while, and Chris had been back to visit and stuff like that. And it had just kind of come up in conversation that, we obviously, we were all open to the idea. Like, we all still like each other and talk to each other and stuff like that. And when we found out our friend Katie was diagnosed with cancer, Chris was going to be home because we had tickets to go see the Orchid reunion in Boston. And the weekend prior to that was Star Wars Day. So our friends in Slimo, Paul DiCiccio, who runs Tor Johnson Records and put out the two Weak Teeth records, he asked us if we could possibly, utilize the fact that Chris is going to be in town to maybe play a reunion show. And after some logistical stuff, we figured it out. And me and Mike and Neil practiced for probably about a month without Chris. And it was, you know, we were like, oh, okay, well, we remember how the songs go, and it's okay, and whatever. Hopefully we'll sound good at the show. You know, we all kind of were a little apprehensive, I think. And then Chris showed up like 3 or 4 days before the show, and honestly, the first note, it was just like, oh fuck, we're back. Like, it was really, it was the cool feeling to, like, after so long, and like without that one integral piece of the puzzle, like, it could be a completely different experience. And then, like, when it was the four of us in the room again, it was just like, you know, it felt like no time had passed. So that was a very cool experience.
That's great. One of your other bands, Best Practices, is another kind of configuration of you know, this crew of folks. You know, Paul that you just mentioned was in that, played drums, and Neil came from behind the drums to play guitar. And yeah, you know, like, just could you talk a little bit about the start of that band, and what you know, yeah, what was the point of creation for that particular thing? Was it just another outlet that you wanted to get into? And because you played bass in that, right? Am I remembering correctly? Yeah. Okay. Yep. So, you know, changing over from guitar to bass in that particular project, like, how did that come about?
That was that kind of happened by accident, honestly. We shared a practice space in right behind where Dusk used to be, which, I don't know, is that going to be another that could be another podcast, I suppose, where
of course,
Dusk used to
be. I'll hand the reins over in some years to someone else that will have that. Yeah.
But yeah, so we had a practice space there for several years, and Wheat Teeth had practice one night, and Paul, who also had his drum kit there, was like, my buddy Jeff is he just moved to Providence. He's a Richmond, Virginia guy. He's like old band guy, and he wants to start a band up here. So he and I are sitting you know, trying to hammer out some stuff, and so I showed up to practice early one day, and they were just, you know, they had written a couple of songs and they were playing them, and it was just guitar and drums, and I was like, oh man, I can hear bass lines to this. And you know, after they were done playing, I just was like, hey, are you guys, like, you're just jamming right now, but like, are you planning on, like, making this into a band? Do you have any, like, bass players in mind? And they said no. And I had never played bass before in a band.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I kind of just threw myself into it, because, like, there were, you know, that band was definitely very power pop, like, kind of just garage. Just very, it was a lot of fun, and it was interesting to kind of, like, find my place as a, like, where my instrument would be, like, in that band, because the guitar work is very intricate. And so finding, like, you know, not wanting to step on that and finding the right place where the bass is going to sit in a song, it was a cool exercise as a musician, because, like, when I heard those songs, I was like, oh, like, I don't know if this is, like, the actual key that the song is in, but this is how I hear it, like, maybe modulating or doing something different. And they seemed to like what I was doing, because we put out 2 records as that band. So
yeah. No, and with that, you know, signed to Tiny Engines, which you know, is a well-known indie label, and did so. Your EP LP was pretty rad, right? It was a single-sided LP, if I remember right.
Yeah.
12-inch, yeah. So, yeah. Can you talk about that? You know, writing that, or like recording that record, putting that out, the process of connecting with Tiny Engines. I'm kind of blanking on who else was on that label right now, so I apologize. But you know, there's some well-known names in addition to Best Practices.
Yes, Best Practices. I would have to assume wherever the Tiny Engines folks are, they probably are still sitting on several boxes of EPLPs somewhere. But no, we got linked up with Tiny Engines because Best Practices played. I booked a show at our practice space, Squid Amps. This was, I don't know, 2011 maybe, and it was You Blew It and Dikembe were on tour together, and they were buddies of ours from touring down to Florida and playing fest and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I put Best Practices on it because I was like, oh, sonically this makes sense. And Steven, I guess from Dikembe, after that tour, one of the guys from Tiny Engines was like, hey, so like did you find any bands on tour? Like, did you meet anybody who like you thought like might be worthwhile for us to like talk to? And I guess Best Practices came up in conversation.
Oh, that's rad.
So thank you, Stephen Gray, for setting us up with the Tiny Engines folks.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was very peripheral to any kind of conversation. They found out that Jeff played in Richmond bands like Wow Owls and like the Fuse and Run and stuff like that. And so like he was like an older guy who had spent some time in the scene, and those bands had name recognition to the Tiny Engines folks. And so I think that kind of piqued their interest a little bit. And then when they heard the songs, they were like, oh, okay, cool. Well, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And we recorded with Will Killingsworth from Orchid and Ampere. And I don't remember a whole lot from those sessions, other than Will is an absolute sweetheart and a professional. And if you have any kind of recording project that you have in mind, that is I could not more highly recommend a person.
Yeah. And where's the studio? It's in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, it's in Western Mass somewhere. I think that since COVID they've relocated, but yeah, he's top-notch individual.
Your latest band, Sullest, yet another kind of configuration of this core group. You know, you're playing with Mike and Neil, and added Ashley to the mix. So how did that? Again, was this just like a natural progression? Who started writing some riffs together, or like what was it that that made this band come together?
So Mike, who played bass in Gunshot Wound and in Weak Teeth, he was like, I kind of want to play the guitar. And Ashley, who also historically a bassist, she played in Good Lord. The two of them were like, oh, you know what? It would be cool if the two of us, as historical, bass players, if we just picked up the guitar and started noodling around. And Mike had a wealth of riffs that because he had planned on starting kind of a noodly, I don't want to call it an emo band because it's not, he really wanted to do like a Tiny Hawks-esque kind of project. Where it's like very, very chaotic guitar, but also very melodic. And him and Ashley, when they started playing together, I think that Ashley, coming from she's got a background in, she listens to a lot of, it's funny, we actually had this realization not that long ago that our overlap in music is minimal at best.
Oh, really?
Yes, which is very funny. But I think that she played in like heavier bands, coming into something that Mike was kind of like, this is more melodic and chaotic. I think that it kind of put them both out of their comfort zones, and they were super initially extremely supportive of each other, because it was like we've never played guitar in front of any other people before. And so it was like, there was that sort of symbiotic, like, just amping each other up.
Yeah.
And eventually when they were like, oh, might be fun. It's very, very, very similar to what happened in Best Practices, where it was like, we're ready to actually start this as a band. And they reached out to Neil and I and were like, because I played bass in Best Practices, I guess they thought that I would be a good fit. And Neil is a human metronome, so that's kind of a no-brainer. So
yeah,
that's kind of how it all came together.
That rolls. And yeah, when did the band start? Like, do you remember around like what year?
So Mike and Ashley started playing together in like 2016.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's been, actually, that was brought to my attention not that long ago, and I was like, oh my god, it's been that long since we've, there's been some kind of version of this band existing. But I believe that we played our first show in 2018.
Okay.
And that was at AS220 with Snowplows, Au Revoir from New Jersey, and God damn it, I can't remember who the fourth band was. I have the flyer around here somewhere, but that was the first show, and it was fun. I mean, I honestly, like, I still consider, I love playing in this band, and the songs are so much fun to play, and like, honestly, like putting them on and listening to them, like, I don't have that feeling that I feel like maybe some musicians do, where it's just like, oh, I can't listen to my own band or whatever. Like, these songs rule. Like, I want to listen to these songs. So,
that's so cool. It's perfect. Yeah. But yeah, your first EP, Fashionable Male, came out in 2018. I got to, shout out All My Shits at TJ's. That song absolutely rules. I don't know if that's like everyone's favorite, but that one's just such a great track. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to uncouple some of these projects from Weak Teeth, just because of the personnel that's in it, and having Neil play drums, who's one of my favorite drummers ever. Having him back doing this stuff, so it was, for me as a fan, it was just like a great kind of next step, because it was still reminiscent, but it wasn't, it's obviously not the same band. There's like different things, but with that stuff coming together that way, it was nice to have that. Like Screamer of the Week was still that kind of like fast, hardcore kind of stuff. So
right.
With you just saying that your first show was around that time, like how quickly did this come together? Was this written as like an EP, or was this written as like, we need to have some songs to kind of get some shows? Like,
it was kind of a culmination of all the stuff that Mike and Ashley had been working on.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess they were, my memory is a little foggy on this, but I seem to remember that it was very similar, where it was like, here's this part and I got this riff. Okay, cool. Let's see if we can transition it to this riff. So it was like more of a collaborative, like Mike would come with a handful of riffs and we'd be like, cool, we can like make these into, as you said earlier, into a tapestry, and, tie them all together and stuff like that. So I get the feeling, if my memory serves me, like that's how the EP was written, was mostly like, collaboratively.
you have a new album, self-titled new album is going to be coming out soon. Is there a release date set?
There is. Yes. We actually, so Armageddon Label is putting it out, which thank you, Ben.
Oh, that rolls.
Yes, we are very, very fortunate and very grateful that Ben has decided to put out our debut full length. We have a single that's coming out on Black Friday, and the actual record itself will be streaming and everything released to the world on Friday, December 13th. So we're close. We're real close.
No, that rolls. Yeah. Because, there's been obviously with 2018 to now, there's been a long gap in between releases. When did you start recording the full length?
We were we recorded with Jared Mann at Distorted Forest, and we were there for 2 sessions, but the sessions were like probably 4 or 5 months apart.
Okay.
So we went in August of 2023. Yeah, so it's probably been a little over a year since everything was finished up. We had to get it mastered, which Will at Dead Air did, and everything had to get approved, and so it was a bit of a slow moving process. But once everything was squared away and good, we that was probably February, March of this year that we got everything squared away. So like I said, it's been a little slow moving, but honestly, like, we're super happy with how the songs sound and the actual like subject content and all of that. Like it was funny to go in and be like, oh, we have like 3-part harmonies that we have to write, and we kind of just did them on the fly. So that was fun, to be able to kind of. Ashley's also a very she knows music theory, and like being able to like have those kind of conversations with her is always very cool. And so bouncing ideas off of her is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, with the content note that you just brought up, thank you for sending me the album ahead of time so I can check it out. I really appreciate it. It's a really great record. I'm excited for people to check out. But
thank you.
A question that I had with, you have these bookend intro, outro instrumental pieces. One called Night Duty, the end track is Morning Bell, and I guess I was curious as to why that was done, or again, I'll take another stab. Here, I'll give you my theory so that I'll be wrong on this game show of interviews with John. But it just kind of struck me as like that it's setting the stage for this time period of when it's happening. That there was like this is going to be like a dark content, that this is happening at night. Like this is like someone, I guess the Night Duty kind of struck me like there's someone that's going in for like the third shift. Morning Bell is like the end of that, is like the end of this record is, when things are brightening up again. But this record is, engulfed in that darkness of night, basically. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone. It's what is in my head, but I would like to hear it if there's anything to that, or because it just struck me as an interesting piece to this record.
Yeah, honestly, you're really not too far off. Like, the first track is called Compline Night Duty, and Mike and Neil and I met at a summer camp when we were teenagers called the Episcopal Conference Center, and that was Mike and Neil became counselors at that camp, and when they were counselors, they would have to do night duty, where they would stay awake and make sure the campers stayed in their cabins and that nobody was getting out and messing around and all that stuff. And every morning there was this bell that actually you can hear on that track. That is the bell that they would ring to wake the campers up. But to your point, yeah, it's definitely like, the thought process was, I believe, this is taking place over the course of an evening.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's an astute observation for sure.
Hey, all right. Cool. But yeah, the sound of this, it kind of struck me. It's a little bit more headbangy, rather than like these, straight rippers that you guys would do in some previous bands. Was there anything in particular that led to that sound? Was it, I mean, maybe you've already answered that question of it was just the writing duo of Ashley and Mike versus some other things. But I guess it's definitely not any type of like stoner type, headbang stuff, but it just has more of that, just, I don't know, just, I'm going to rock with you, John. That's all.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good point. It's definitely, it's not as somebody used the phrase on the EP, get in, get out.
Okay.
And this record is very much not like that, where like it's, and I think that maybe this might be due to the fact that like there has been 7 years between the like EP that came out and this. And in that time, a lot has happened just personally with all of us and obviously in the world and everything. And so I think that a lot of that just kind of translated to the sound of the band. Mike really, he spent a lot of time, and I think probably like, during like lockdown and like high COVID and during all that time period, like he just like cranked riffs out. And, it, once we started practicing again, he was just like, here's all this stuff that I have that is ready to go. And so there was definitely an evolution. You could see that there was a somewhat of a tonal shift, between, the earlier songs and this stuff. And I think that a lot of it is just that, like, we all have just got this love for 90s alt rock. And I think that like we tried to, it was like, where can we find the intersection between that and, Hum or Torch or any of these other bands that we would cite as influences, where like, can we find a through line with all of that? And that the record is definitely our best attempt at that. So
yeah, there's definitely some pieces of like In Utero Nirvana, but like heavier. It's
absolutely, yes.
Biggest, it's like if Nirvana was heavier, but
sure. Yes, I appreciate that.
Are there any particular songs on this record that you're like most excited for people to hear?
Yeah, it's funny at this point, like anytime we play live, we're playing 2 songs off of the EP at this point, and everything else is off the full length. So like,
yeah,
if people have seen us, chances are good they've heard the songs, which
it's
cool. But we did a music video for Dirt Mall,
okay,
which is one of the shorter songs on the record. But it's cool. It's actually like, so all the lyrics are about, they're literally in the song. The lyrics are celebrate the past, don't let it bury you. And, it's, it's supposed to be respecting nostalgia, appreciating it, but not letting it dictate your future. So the music video is, a lot of footage from like the early gunshot wound days, and when we were like 13, 14 years old playing at AS220, and Ashley had all of this footage of like her bands from the same time playing, like, we like had to scour these like high 8 tapes to like put all of this footage together. And I cut it all together, and there's some live footage and stuff like that. But it's a really cool video, and I'm really looking forward to people seeing it.
That's cool. That's cool. That does strike me because, again, listening to the record, I don't know why this merch idea popped in my head. I'll pass it along. You guys do with it as you will. But I just envisioned this needlepoint stitching of, like the Home Sweet Home type of graphic, but with the lyrics of "the good old days are right in front of your fucking face." And I don't know why. I don't know why that just kind of struck me, but it had that tone to me. So yeah, it was a great record to listen to for that kind of perspective, for that. Again, maybe just where we're at and where I can identify, but just to have that focus on where we can be, and just kind of balancing that nostalgia, but still staying in the moment, and not letting today go by, like the experiences that I'm having today and what's going on, because, I was able to do different things earlier in my life, that whatever, so, yeah, it's a fantastic record for that as well. So yeah, where can people pick this up and things like that? Is it up for pre-order anywhere, or is it?
So once the single comes out on Black Friday, and we'll be doing an album announcement and pre-order and all that stuff at the same time. And cool. So we'll be doing it through our Bandcamp, which is sullest.bandcamp.com, and then I believe also dropdeadhc.com is another place that you can go. I'm like 78% sure that is the right link, but the Bandcamp one, our Bandcamp one, is 100% the right link.
All right.
So
cool. We'll just check that, or just make sure to follow Sullest wherever you follow people on the internet these days. Yeah, I really want to talk about the cover show, but before that, you've been a part of some other like fun projects. You did a band called Tomb Envy as well. And you got to forgive me because you did like was it a Phil Collins tribute record, or again?
Oh no, yeah,
or
that was
something like that.
That was a Billy Joel cover record.
Billy Joel. Okay, all right.
That was my he's losing his mind and I'm reaping all the benefits moment during high COVID.
Okay, right, yeah. So just wanted to shout those out. Is there anything that you want to talk about with those, fun passion projects that you've been a part of?
Yeah, Tomb Envy was cool, and we actually still play. It's
nice.
Like our biannual band. So when Sullest can't play, Tomb Envy generally will. We roped Ashley from Sullest into playing bass in Tomb Envy because she came and saw us and was like, "Oh, that's a lot of fun." Very similar to like a Chris situation where it's like, "I just want to play like 4-chord punk."
Yeah.
But it was funny, and we kind of duped her because like those songs are very difficult, and you wouldn't expect it hearing them because it's just like 80s hardcore. But like it's the same thing where it's like, cool, we're gonna play this riff 3 times, and then the 4th time we're gonna do like a variation on it, and then we're never gonna play it again. It's never gonna happen again in the song ever. And she's like, "You guys are assholes! Like learning this song. These songs were just like." She was like, "This was very difficult to do."
Yeah.
So thank you, Ashley, for doing that.
And that all surrounds like a record based on Blade Runner, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. We have a second record that is all of the music is recorded for it. We have about half of the lyrics recorded as well, and that record is about The Thing. So this is kind of just like a Neil and John studio project that has turned into when Sullest can't play. I was like, well, maybe Tomb Envy can play. So
yeah, nice. So let's talk about your holiday cover shows. You've been doing the one that's coming up on December 13th and December 20th. This was going to be your 11th annual holiday cover shows. These have been a fantastic time. I'll let you speak in more detail, but you basically just kind of throw it out there to the musicians in the scene to create a cover band, or I guess bands that are already formed can learn a particular popular band's songs and come together on these nights and raise money for charity. What made you want to start this 11 years ago?
It's funny to think about the beginning of it, because it kind of came from a place that I guess I wouldn't have expected it to. Like, it was a combination between two different situations. An old buddy of ours, Adam Thoreau, who he did Hank Sinatra Jr. and Buy-N-Old Ham Sandwich and countless other projects, but he used to put a show together called The Most Worst Summer Ever. And this was like maybe 2008 to 2010 or 2011. And one year we were like, yeah, we could play, like, he asked us to play. And we were like, yeah, we could do Gunshot Wound songs, but we could also just like learn like adult contemporary songs from the 80s and just like do that. And I think that would like really surprise people to like hear that coming from us. So that was the beginning of us being like, oh, we're actually okay at our instruments and we can do this. Like, we can play something other than punk or hardcore. And then Fest 13, I want to say, was 2014, and we did a Choking Victim cover set that year. Weak Teeth did. And I came home and everyone was like, are you gonna do that Choking Victim set? Like, nobody saw it, so can you do it up here? And I was like, well, this is a good opportunity for us to do that. Let's just like, I'll put together like a cover show or whatever, and we can do Choking Victim, and we'll just do it for charity. And I actually found the first flyer. It was $5, and it was New Order, Alkaline Trio, Jawbreaker, Choking Victim, and Brand New. So a definite, like, it was not really it was a much different vibe than now, where like this year is like Stone Temple Pilots and Nirvana and the Go-Go's, and it's like, more like accessible bands that, like, rather than like, here's this like niche ska punk record from 1998 that 10 people are going to care about. But
that brings me to, how many emails or direct messages or comments have you had to correct people thinking that somehow Nirvana is opening up for New Order at, and Stone Temple Pilots, like, on the same show? Because it just seems that must happen every single year, where people are like, whoa.
Well, I'm actually I'm a necromancer, and I brought Kurt Cobain back from the dead just for one night only.
And he's playing at a skier or whatever. He's playing at whatever, Machines with Magnets,
Yeah. No, it's I've had to do that a handful of times. And anytime I've like put on like Reddit or Facebook or anything like that, like sure enough, every single time somebody being like, oh my God, Alanis Morissette's playing at Alchemy? Like, no. And I have to go into every single comment and say no, just to make sure that that this is like not false advertising, like it's a cover show. So
because it does say cover show in the larger letters at the top.
Very large, yes.
What have been some of the more memorable sets over the years? Has there been anything that has stuck out? Anything that I mean, obviously I've been able to go to quite a few. They've all been like really fantastic times. Like, legit, it's been amazing to see what people can do and how they can pull this stuff together. And like, seeing the Fugazi cover set a couple of years ago and being like, who knows when I'll see Fugazi, if ever again. So some like people that I really, look like respect playing these songs, like really well was a really awesome experience, So,
Yeah.
but like, have there been anything over the years that you're like, that caught you off guard, or just something that was super memorable?
There's two that come to mind immediately. One of them was the fourth year at Dusk when Lame Genie covered songs from the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack, which like not only like are those folks virtuosos of their instruments, but
Mhm.
that one, they're absolute goofballs, which I love, and two, that soundtrack was so instrumental to my like teenage years that
Mhm.
seeing that like pitch perfect, nailing it 100% was truly like a very very cool experience. And they actually in the background they had gameplay footage of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, so that was
Oh,
a
wow.
cool added bonus. And then last year the brother Kite covered The Strokes, and it was pitch fucking it was unbelievable. Like, not only
Mhm.
was it like my jaw was on the floor from the first note, like they absolutely dialed in the tone. Patrick's vocals were like, it sounded like we were like just listening to the CD. It was wild.
Mhm.
um so those two were, I mean, obviously every band is like brings their own flavor to their set, and everybody kills it, and I'm so grateful that people year after year continue. I mean, I had 6 bands booked in March of this year for December.
Wow.
So like people look forward to this, which is a very, humbling and cool experience to know that like I've made something out of nothing that people seem to give a shit about. So
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's been great, and you've raised a lot of money over the years. Last several years have been going to the Rhode Island Community Food Bank. This year, can you talk about where the money is going to be going, and just again remind folks of where the shows and the dates are for this year?
absolutely, yeah. So the food bank has been the beneficiary for the past 10 years. And I guess I started to think like, well, there are other organizations, there are other charities and stuff like that maybe it might be beneficial to branch out and offer help to other groups.
Mhm.
And so this year, there are two beneficiaries. One is Riot, which is formerly Girls Rock Rhode Island.
Mhm.
Um, and the other is Amos House in Pawtucket, which they are they're a homeless shelter, but they also offer a lot of like rehabilitation services as well.
Mhm.
And so that's yeah, I'm thinking that I'll probably, for however long I continue to do this, I'll probably just keep rotating charities, and just kind of spread the wealth around, as it were.
Mhm. And again, you've shifted the location for this year. You'll be at Machines with Magnets on December 13th, correct? And
That's
then
right. Yes,
December 20th, you're at Alchemy. So,
that's right.
well,
Yep.
actually, you've been at Alchemy in the past, I guess. But
I have, yeah. So we generally and I'm super super grateful to John DeFrucio and Psycho and Winsong, his wife, and because they have been wonderful hosts at Askew, and I was
Mhm.
real bummed out to hear that they were closing.
Yeah.
But John was extremely helpful and was like, I can offer you these dates, and the one on the 20th at Alchemy, that one worked out, and Catherine at Machines with Magnets. Also, their availability was much appreciated as well, because it was definitely kind of a last minute change, and I wasn't stressing out about it. I wasn't worried. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah. All I had to do was just send one email one time. Just, like,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. Well, yes, again, thank you for what you do with that. You do, again, some amazing work with the money that you bring in for charities. But again, just as someone that's been able to attend it, it's fantastic to see the quality of shows that you put on, but just the camaraderie among a lot of the people that are there, and just, there's just, it builds a lot of bridges within the community as a whole, that it's just, everyone's welcome to these shows and invited to come down and have a good time and relive these songs, so and yeah, I guess I just also want to shout out as well that it is, the Brother Kite is such a phenomenal band that, yeah, when I've seen them do these, it's like mind blowing to the point of like being aggravated of like, this is better. Like, I'm sure that Ed Dando is jealous of how good the Brother Kite can perform some Lemonhead.
That Lemonhead set. That was honestly, that was something that and the funny thing is that like that year when it was digital and we were streaming it on Twitch and everything, like Patrick sent that to me. He was the first person to be like, "We're done." I was like, "What?" And it was like a half hour of like, this is the Lemonheads. This is literally just these songs. Like,
yeah,
you nailed it. Like, this is they are perfectionists, and it's very cool to watch live.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, John Downs, who plays in the Brother Kite, has done like the last couple of High Plains records, and
cool.
It's cool to have his touch on the recording and mixing of that stuff. So, John, just wanted to ask you to kind of wrap this. What has been your greatest musical accomplishment to this point?
It's a hard thing to kind of quantify. I think that the fact that I'm still playing music with the same people I've been playing music with since I was 13 years old, like that feels really special to know that like I've like found like-minded people who want to elect to spend time with each other and, create something together. Like, I think that, we toured and we put out records and stuff like that. And like, that's cool. And I'm grateful for those experiences and all of that. But I think that just like the human relationship portion of playing in a band with people that you've known forever, like, I think that that's probably the biggest accomplishment that I've experienced as a musician.
Yeah, that's on point. That's really cool. Well, thanks again, John. It was really great to speak to you about your career and just the amazing things that you've done in Rhode Island and to share our tiny state with everyone that knows and loves you around the country and around the world. So
thank you, James.